Hello everyone and welcome back to Pragati Vichar Literature Festival's Authors Marathon. Today we are having Niyatee Sharma, Vinitha and Daya Subramanian with us. We'll be talking a lot about children book, education, etc. So first, let me introduce you to the wonderful panel I'm having. So first on the panel we are having Niyatee Sharma, who graduated from Center for Environmental Planning and Technology as an interior designer and has found her love in writing for children. Her books include The Runway Peacock, What Can I Be, and Harvest Day and The Tomato Flood. Thank you so much, Niyati, for joining us today. Next on the panel, we are having Vinitha, who is an award-winning author and editor, who also paints and writes poetry. An ex-journalist and columnist, Vinitha has written over 30 books for children. Her stories are part of CBSE and ICSE curriculum. Her books, Amu and the Sparrows, won the Neve Literature Award 2021 and is part of Parag Honor List. Thank you so much, Vinitha, for joining us today. Luckily for her, she founded Tribe in Children's Publishing, a space that encourages creativity. Daya has 7 years of experience in the industry and has edited and commissioned over 50 books. She has an MA in publishing and from Oxford Brookes University. Thank you so much, Daya, for joining us today. Yeah, so with that, let's directly dive into the question answers round. So first question for the panel would be, can you tell us a little about your journey as a children's author? What drew you to writing for young readers? So let's start with Vinitha first.
One long story or the short one?
Um, Middle one.
Okay. So my mom is an amazing storyteller, and she used to tell us stories all the time. And I never ever realized which story is Panchatantra, which is from the Arabian Nights, which is from Aesop's tale. She just and a lot of her stories were also her own childhood stories. And I think I would go back to school and make my own stories, pulling from different stories here and there. And I became a very good storyteller in school. And I think I enjoy just creating stories. And because my mom was a really natural storyteller, every incident in her life would be about how it started, the story arc, and the end. And she did this every day. And so naturally, writing a story came to us just because we heard this over and over again. One day, I wrote a story and it got published when I was a student in college. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I can do this for fun and I also make money. And that was the start of my journey of actually writing a book.
Mhm. Niyati, your input into this?
So, books have always played a very integral role in my life, right from my childhood. When I used to literally sometimes like read a book a day. And I remember I used to look forward to my summer vacations because my Nana would, get me a book every day from the fort area in Mumbai, and I would read it and return it. And the next day he would, come back with another book. So I always read like, hundreds of books during my summer vacations. And even as a young adult and way into my professional life, I think I continued to always have a pile of books next to me. And I think somewhere after I embarked on the journey of motherhood is when I actually got introduced to the completely entirely new Indian collection of picture books, which had very regional stories. And it really made me fall in love with literature all over again. And coming from a design background, I think I was really drawn to the format of picture books because it has a really good mix of text and images. And I think after my second child was born is when I actually decided to write a book based on our terrace gardening experiences, because I felt like there was no book which spoke about growing your own food. And that's how my first book happened. And I never knew it was going to be like many books after that, but yeah, I think I continued my journey of writing more books. Basically, books have always been a very integral part of my childhood. I always remember like being surrounded by books and pretty much finishing off all the books in the local library. And even when I went for my summer vacations to Mumbai, my Nana would get me a book every day from the secondhand bookstores of the fort area. And I would like, finish off books and return it, and he would bring me new ones. So I think, I read hundreds of books even during my summer vacations. And even as a young adult and way into my professional life, I always had like a pile of books surrounding me. And it's after I embarked on my journey of motherhood that I actually, rediscovered children's literature in the, brand new Indian avatar, which had, like books of Indian context. And I really, fell in love with those. The early ones that I read were from Tulika mostly. And I particularly, coming from a design background, I particularly fell in love with the picture book format because it had a great balance of, images and text. And I was really drawn to it. And I think after my second child was born is when I decided to, write my own book based on our terrace gardening experiences. So that was my first book, which is called The Tomato Thief. And I never knew that there would be more books after that, but I continued writing more books, and so that's my journey.
Perfect. Perfect. Let's hear from Daya as well.
Yeah, so I work in the children's publishing industry, and I've worked in it for 10 years now. And the reason I got into children's publishing is because I used to read a lot as a child, and books were always a safe space for me when I was a child. And even as I continued to grow, I still went back to children's books anytime I was upset or anytime I was going through something difficult. It was a source of comfort for me. So that's why I work in children's publishing. And because I work in the industry, I'm constantly in touch with incredible authors and illustrators, and I'm reading a lot of picture books and chapter books, and I'm meeting young readers at literature festivals and book launches. So it's really hard to not be inspired to write for children when you work in the industry.
Definitely. So, now that we all are aware of how we started off with the children's journey, so let's, discuss basically what is the inspiration behind this. So, what inspires your stories are those personal experiences, observations, or pure imagination? Let's start from Niyatee first.
I think it's definitely a mix of all of those three. It has to be like personal experiences, observations, as well as a bit of imagination. I think every story is rooted in maybe either some personal experience or some observation. But then I think you always have to add in lots of elements of imagination to make it more exciting or interesting for the child reading it. And I think all of my books have some kind of a personal inspiration behind them. It could either be like my childhood experience or my children's experience. Having two kids, I always have lots of inspiration around me to write. So yeah.
Definitely. There are any push into this?
Actually, almost the same answer as Niyatee. I think definitely personal experience is what inspires me, but it always has to have some sort of touch of imagination to elevate the story a bit. So for instance, the shelter cats was based on a personal experience of me working at a shelter, but I felt like it would have been a very bland and boring story if I just said what happened. So I wanted to make it more interesting and exciting for children, so I added unique personalities to each of these cats. So instead of just being brown cats, white cats, there were cats that could sing, cats that could do ballet, cats that could bark. So yeah, very similar answer to Niyatee. I think it's a bit of all of that: personal experience, imagination.
Vinitha, would you like to add on to this?
For me, I wrote stories only because I wanted to write stories. I wanted to create something which I had the power to close. And so, the only way you actually can be God. You can start a thing, you can create people, you can create a universe, and you can make them happy and you can keep them in that happy space. And I wrote stories only for that reason. I wanted to create happiness. I want to create spaces where things were resolved, and I want to tell a good story. I started only with that. And I think my first series of books was written when I was most unhappiest, and I wanted to write happy love stories where love was the answer, love was the magic, and I've kept at that only. I have not found missions to write a story. It's just been I want to tell a good story.
Very well answered. So with that, now I want to ask all of you. So there's always a message behind a story, right? So when it comes to writing for children, so how do you balance strong messages with engaging storylines for children? Let's start with Daya first.
So personally, I think for me, the priority is always to write an engaging story first. I wouldn't necessarily write with a message in mind or a moral in mind, because I think sometimes children, they already get a lot of that, from their textbooks in school, and they can be a little put off if a story is too didactic or if it's too preachy. So my priority is always writing an engaging story first, and I think the message will follow. And sometimes there may not even be a message in the story, and I think that's okay. I think we shouldn't be afraid of writing interesting, engaging stories just because there isn't a moral to the story.
Hmm. Vinitha, your answer to this?
My answer would be exactly the same. I feel like we grew up with moral science stories and we grew up with story at the end. Say, what did you get from the story? And I think we have to understand that children are far more intelligent than that, and we don't need to tell them anything. When you talk to children like they are equals, and you tell them a good story, they pick up what they need to pick up, and that's exactly what I want to say. The same as there. Yeah.
Niyatee, would you like to add on to this?
I think most of my stories are just like a lot of fun stories, which kind of just interest children in a particular topic, I would say. And yeah, I think similarly, like you don't write because you want to give a message, but if your books do end up having some kind of a subtle messaging, it's woven into the story. I don't think it doesn't need to stand out. And also, it's very important to write it from a children's perspective. Like, I think you cannot be writing that message or whatever that issue from a very adult perspective. So the minute you look at it from a child's perspective, it becomes something that a child can really relate to, and while they're reading it, and then that brings the message home more easily.
Hmm. Definitely. So, so what role do you think, parents and educators or any stakeholders into the, children industry, or basically the children publishing industry, play in building early reading habits? So, why don't you start first?
Well, as someone who works in the industry, we say our primary audience is children, but it's actually parents who are our primary audience, and teachers and educators are our secondary audience. So I think they're absolutely key, parents and teachers and librarians. We need parents who want to raise readers. We need librarians who are very engaged. So yeah, I think they are extremely important.
Niyatee, would you like to add on this?
Yeah, definitely parents and educators play a big role in, making children fall in love with reading and the whole culture of, reading books. I think it's when the child is really young, it's very important to kind of introduce them to good books. So I think it really helps if the parents, expose them to like a good library or a good collection of books which really, interest them. And of course, it's very essential for parents to read to children when they're really young, so that when they grow up a little bit, then they just start reading independently. And I think once they are a little more older, like maybe middle school and later, then after that, I think parents need to stop really intruding into their, selection of books, and then just let them read what really interests them. Because I think it's only in the younger ages when the parents really need to like make that effort of picking good books, and reading aloud to the children. And I think that is what just triggers the habit of reading books and falling in love with books, essentially. And then later on, I think I've seen a lot of parents who come and say, oh, my child only reads graphic novels, or he only reads, certain kind of books. He only reads nonfiction, but that's absolutely fine. Just let them read whatever they love to read. I've experienced that with my own children. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, Vinitha, would you like to add on to this?
I think in today's world where just reading, just for anybody, not even children, anyone reading is so much more tougher, because you have absolutely fine storytelling happening in digital media, right? You have great storytelling happening there. Why would I pick up a book? And so when children look up to adults around them. So if you are not reading as a parent, as an educator, as a librarian, as a teacher, if you're not reading, why would the children read? I have so many parents who come and say, help me select the book. And you're going to select books for the kids. Are you reading with them? Are you reading anyways without them? Are you holding a book? And as adults, we're not. So yes, we play a big role. If I have parents who come and say, I don't read, but my son is a great reader, and I'm thinking somewhere in his life, either a librarian or a teacher or someone who's a role model is definitely reading books, and therefore that child has picked up from that. So yes, educators, parents, adults, and we play a big role in this space, and we need to also keep reading.
Definitely. My follow-up question to this would be in the terms of digital era, where there's a wide array of content available through the mediums of, YouTube, etc. So, how do you protect your children in terms of sensitive topics, firstly, and second, basically, encourage them to read books instead of, going through the digital mediums as well. So, Vinitha, why don't you start first?
I think uh, first of all, we have to just I don't the word isn't resigned, but the digital world is here. We have to find ways to coexist and know the children will take content from every area. We are doing it as adults. Um, I think that how do you weed out things and how do you edit what our children read and what they consume? You can't. You really can't. What you can do is you can have intelligent conversations with your child. You have to have, for that, you need to spend time with your child to be able to have that conversation because they're going to pick information in different formats all the time. And when they're ready for it, that content will make sense to them and when they're not so even if they're consuming things in a book or even on YouTube in a video if they don't know it they won't pick that thread up but if they do then I hope that you have made those communication lines with your children available for them to come to you to ask you further questions. So yeah, AI is here and digital media is here and there is great content happening over there and it's easier to consume it from Instagram and YouTube. I just hope that as parents, as educators, we make that space for our children so that our children can then ask us further questions and come back to us. And if they don't understand it, they won't pick that thread up. So we don't need to gatekeep information from children. We really don't. We need to be able to communicate better with our kids.
Definitely. There, your point of view in this?
Yeah, I agree with Vinitha. I don't think there's any point in trying to prevent children from consuming digital media at all. In fact, it'll probably have the opposite effect. It will make them resent books if they feel like they're being forced to read books and they're not allowed to engage with digital media. But I think we should encourage children to talk to each other about the books that they're reading. For instance, encourage book clubs. We should encourage parents to read with their children. I remember when I was young, any book that I read, my mother would read as well. Even as I started reading chapter books and young adult books, my mother would read as well, and then we could talk about the books together. So I think things like that make it interesting for children, and it can coexist with digital media.
I like the point
Definitely.
about the book club. I think book clubs are really cool. You're right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Niyatee, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I think Vinitha and Daya are both true in saying that you cannot cut off the digital world today from the child. That's here to stay. But I think what's important is that there's a good balance between what children are consuming from the digital world and from, say, books and otherwise, like just conversations or just, with their peers or with parents. So yeah, I think that the peer pressure is here again very important because like if you have say many children who are just not reading books, but I think the child who reads can really inspire the others to pick up books by sharing the books that they are reading. And here schools again also play a very important role because nowadays a lot of schools have like this out of syllabus reading or non-detailed reading as a part of their, like school course. So I think that kind of introduces children to books where they can have discussions based on books, and a lot of a lot of schools have festivals or book melas, and I think all of those. So I think it's an ecosystem which we need to keep working on, parents and educators together, to ensure that books are not lost in this process, in today's world.
Definitely. In this Pragati Literature Festival, Pragati Vichar Literature Festival, we have a special segment where we encourage, child writers, basically children writers. So, this year we came across 10 different authors. They are aged around 12 or 13, and they've already written a book by themselves, and which is also published. So, yeah, it's headed into the right direction. So with that, we are over with the common question answers round. Now we will dive into the individual question round. So my first question is for Vinitha. So how challenging was it to present a freedom fighter's journey in a child-friendly narrative?
It was quite challenging because first of all, there's not much information. Not just freedom fighters, women freedom fighters. There is information about women freedom fighters. We don't, women participated equally in the freedom movement, and there is so little stories of women participating in this. 𝐵𝐻𝐺𝐸 𝐬𝐬 was incredible, and I'm thinking of just every time, uh, as adults, to dissent is so hard. Imagine for how powerless children feel, and to even question adults around them, question people they look up to. So 𝐵𝐻𝐺𝐸 𝐬𝐬 did all of that, and her story is not known. So yeah, it was, and to put all of that into a picture book format, it was, it was just difficult because you want to compress so much information. I also like Daya says, it's important to tell a good story, and then children, if they're so engaged in that story, then children will research about that person. So what we then in the end just automatically moved into a verse format, poetry format, because poetries have so many layers in it, and you hope that the layers are picked by the kids, and then they find out that story. And of course, we left the book with a note, and therefore there were other details about a freedom fighter called 𝐵𝐻𝐺𝐸 𝐬𝐬 came out through that.
Hmm. Interesting. My next question is for Daya. So, what is the message you want young readers to carry with them after reading The Shelter Cats?
Um, well, for one, I wanted them to be entertained by the story because it's just a funny story about, these cats who do bizarre things like singing and barking. But really, I wanted children to understand that the cats that they see on the streets, the homeless cats, they're all unique in their own ways. They all have their little quirks, and they all are just as deserving of having a home as any breed cat. And even if a child isn't able to adopt a cat from a shelter, there are still other things that they can do to help out. So there's a little note at the end of the book about how you can donate clothes to shelters or cat food to shelters, or even just spend time with cats in shelters because that makes a big difference to them because they are quite lonely there. So yeah, that was the message of the book.
Perfect. So, Niyatee, how do you hope young readers will feel after reading your book, Perfect the Way You Are?
So in today's day and age, where there's just too much pressure to fit in, to conform to all the what the adults are telling you to do, or peer pressure of other children to just do what everyone else is doing, to it translates everywhere in the clothes that children wear, or in what they read, or what they how they even do the hairstyle, or like everything, right? So there's just too much peer pressure of even like buying things, like okay, he or she has it, so I must have it. So I think in this kind of a environment, I think it's very important to let children know that they can be their own unique selves, and they can be individuals in their own way. So I think through this book, I mean, what I wanted the children to feel is that, first of all, I wanted them to be seen, to be heard. I wanted them to find themselves in the pages of these books, and to know that you're fine the way you are, and you don't really need to change, or you don't really need to, fit in just to be accepted, and to have the courage to just be who you are and to love yourself the way you are. So I think that was my intention. And when I've had a few readings with, the children, I've had children coming up to me and say, "Hey, that's me. This is me." I'm the one. I love my hair. I love it long, and I'm never ever going to cut it. And there are children who come and say, I don't like to, go into large gatherings. I don't like to meet too many people. So I think children are finding themselves in these books, and they're also finding other people they know around them. Like somebody comes and says, "Hey, this is my best friend. He's like this or she's like that." So I think just the fact of, being being heard and being seen, and knowing that, you're fine no matter how you are. So I think that was the idea behind writing this book, and I hope that, more children who need to know that they're perfect the way you are, they get a chance to read this book.
Definitely, very important message indeed. So with that, having just one last question from all of you. So, like, do you have any tips for aspiring children's book authors? Either they are children who are looking forward to writing, or who are adults who are writing for children. Any tips for them? Let's start with Daya first.
I think the most important thing is to read a lot, and even if you are an adult, to read a lot of children's books, because even if you are an excellent writer for adults, writing for children it takes a whole different skill set to write for children, and I think the best way to hone that is to keep reading.
Yeah, Vinitha?
There's taken my answer from me. I wanted to say that, especially because also to see what is being published in the industry at this point in time. Very often people who are writing, who want to write, are not reading, and if they are reading, then they've read books very long back. Just to get into the nerve of the industry, to know what is relevant right now. It's so important to read what's happening across the world, in the country, just because it's just reflects about what a publisher is looking for, what kind of stories they want to tell. And so therefore, yes, reading, what Daya said, yes, please read.
Yeah. Perfect. Niyatee?
Yeah, I think reading is definitely very important. I think you should read a lot, and you should read different genres and, different styles of writing, even though you may not want to write a particular kind of, book, but you should read all types of books. And I think also, like, just keep your eyes and mind open to things around you. Like, I think you should travel a lot, just make lots of observations, listen to conversations, especially children's conversations around you. I think that's very important when you want to write for children. And I would also say write a lot, write, like, even if you know that it's, this is not getting converted into a book, but just write a lot. And don't fall in love with everything you write, because you need to keep it aside and then, get back to it after a while. And then, yeah, you may get better ideas on how to improve it. So, yeah.
Definitely. You have to be on the task as well. Perfect. So with that, thank you so much, Daya, Vinitha, and Niyatee, for joining us today and sharing your valuable insights. I do hope it reaches the right audience, and the viewers get also inspiration from you guys as well. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
For
you.
having